The Senate will come back to order. The Senate will come back to order. Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 20th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 142.
Will the Secretary please read the captions?
Senate Bill 142 by Senators Walker, the 20th, and others. The bill be titled Act Amendment Chapter 24, Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance generally, so as to require that a statement indicating that the subscriber's health policy is fully insured is included on a subscriber's health insurance identification card for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 142. Bill will be titled Act Amendment Chapter 24 of Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance generally, so as to require that a statement indicating that the subscriber's health policy fully insured is included on subscriber's health insurance identification card and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. You all passed Senate Bill 142. I believe it was a unanimous vote. Basically, it's to help our dentists and optometrists and other healthcare providers identify up front if the patient is covered under a Georgia regulated insurance plan or a federally regulated insurance plan. The House wanted to clarify the language on lines 58 through 61 to not require that it say fully insured on the insurance card, because they thought it would confuse the consumer, make the consumer think there was no deductible. So we just clarified that language. I ask for your favorable vote on this bill. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
All right, thank you. I yield the well.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? Chair hears none. Senator from the 20th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 142. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 142. You have a consent calendar for study committees before you. Does any senator wish to remove one of the resolutions from the consent calendar? Is there objection to adoption of the resolutions on the consent? This is for study committees only. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none. The resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. I want a game plan. All right, you now have a consent calendar that expresses the will of the Senate before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Mr. President, I'd like to object to Senate Resolution 114, Senate Resolution 341, Senate Resolution 365.
The minority leader has objected to Senate Resolutions 114, 341, and 365, and they will be voted on separately, removed from the consent calendar. Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to object to Senate Bill 276.
All right, so Senate
Senate
Resolutions 114, 341, 365, and 276 have been removed from the calendar. Is there objection to the adoption of the remaining resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none. The resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption of Senate Resolution 114?
Senate Resolution 114 by Senator Ligon III and others, a resolution urging Congress to pass funding legislation that will secure the southern border of the United States and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the minority leader to speak to his objection.
Mr. President, I won't belabor this point, but myself and many of my colleagues, while we strongly support America having a strong border and an effective border, we don't necessarily feel that this resolution urging a building of a border wall encompasses all of the things that are needed and may have support a border wall which is less effective than other means of protecting our border. You know, in the emergency declaration the President has to fund a border wall, he's talking about taking $99 million for cybersecurity instruction facility at Fort Gordon, nearly $31 million for a hangar at Moody Air Force Base, more than $75 million for combat vehicle warehouse and body repair at Albany Marine Corps. Without us knowing where we are going to pull these dollars, I don't think we're making a sound decision here making this declaration. So I urge you to vote against this and work with your federal representatives in trying to make sure we have a secure and safe border that is the most effective way possible. Thank you. I urge you to vote no on this resolution.
Senator, the chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's one thing that we know for sure is that walls work when it comes to security. In nations that have issues with their borders where they build walls, the problems go away. And we have an issue with our border now. In fact, our Secretary of Homeland Security has declared now that it's reached the breaking point. We're in a crisis, a full-fledged state of emergency. Just since the beginning of this year, over 268,000 individuals have crossed illegally into this nation. We don't know who they are, and we do know that many times that they're gangs or criminals that come in and they prey upon our citizens. When we allow uncontrolled immigration, it drives wages down for hardworking people. I know that corporate America does support unfettered immigration at times, but it's hard on our workers. The labor pool, it's flooded and wages go down. We also know that fentanyl is coming into this country. Just a short time ago, enough was stopped to kill over 115 million Americans. It's horrible. We know in Georgia that at the end of 2016, there were maybe around 400,000 illegal immigrants in our state. But Congress has yet to act on this. Now is an opportunity for us as a state to come together in a bipartisan way and urge Congress to take this issue on and do something to secure our border. The people of this country are fed up with their government not doing anything about this. And this is both Democrats and Republicans. But we have a chance today to come together and give a clear message to Congress that something needs to be done about this. I can tell you that this is one of the primary campaign issues for President Trump, and it's why people from all walks of life came together and voted him, elected him, and put him into office to do something about this. Now it's time for us to come together as a people and support that and encourage Congress to do something about it. We need to support this resolution. Let's make our message known. I appreciate your support for the bill.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? Chair hears none of the previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? Questions on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 34, the nays are 20. The resolution having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore adopted. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption to Senate Resolution 276?
Senate Resolution 276 by Senator Unterman of the 45th and others, a resolution urging Congress to eliminate the 5-month waiting period for disability insurance benefits for individuals living with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we talked about this morning in points of personal privilege, we talked about people having ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. All this resolution does is urge Congress to waive the 5-month waiting period for people to collect their Social Security disability benefits. As we know, it's a debilitating disease. It takes several months to diagnose it, and unfortunately, by the time it's diagnosed, your lifespan is cut very, very short. So it's only appropriate that we urge Congress to change their policy on Social Security benefits so these people do not suffer as much as they are currently suffering. So with that, I urge your favorable consideration of Senate Resolution 276 in honor of Ms. Stephanie Lottie. Thank you very much, and I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? Chair hears none of the previous questions ordered. Or is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? Questions on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Resolution 341?
Senate Resolution 341 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others, a resolution urging the United States Congress to oppose the Green New Deal and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask my colleagues to support Senate Resolution 341. Simply, Senate Resolution 341 urges the U.S. Congress to oppose the Green New Deal. I believe the Green New Deal should be renamed to the Jobs Killing Bill, because that's what the Green New Deal will do: kill jobs and cost a minimum of $4.6 trillion or more to implement. Now, we're all for clean energy and we're all for a clean environment, but this is overkill. In the last 10 years, we have spent over $150 billion on the development of renewable energy sources, and we saw less than a 10% use from green sources. There are 10 million jobs employed directly or indirectly in the oil and gas industry that could lose their jobs. Now let's look at a few other impacts of the Green New Deal. One, you would have to upgrade, rebuild, or replace every single building in the United States. Think about that. Number two, it would end all traditional forms of energy in the next 10 years. Number three, it would ban nuclear energy in 10 years. And number four, it would eliminate air travel. Now let's look at how much it will cost. There really are no estimates on the total cost, but I would like to read to you a quote from the sponsor of the bill, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She admits, I want you to listen to this quote, even if every billionaire and company came together and were willing to pour all resources at their disposal into this investment, the aggregate value of the investments they could make would not be sufficient enough to make this work. She does provide one estimate that the cost to repair and upgrade U.S. infrastructure alone will cost a minimum of $4.6 trillion. And when asked how we're going to pay for this, she states this: the Federal Reserve can extend credit to power these projects and investments, or new public banks can be created to extend credit. So we're going to create new banks to fund the Green New Deal? In closing, Mr. President, the U.S. Senate recently voted on the Green New Deal. 3 Democrats voted against it, 1 independent voted against it, all Republicans voted against it, and the remainder of the Democrats voted present. They didn't get 1 vote on the Green New Deal. So I say let's send a message to Congress and let them know the Georgia Senate is against killing jobs and creating more national debt. I urge you to vote yes on Senate Resolution 341. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I yield the well.
You do have questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, isn't it true that the author of this legislation leaked accidentally to her website that, quote, the Green New Deal would offer economic security to all those who are unable or unwilling to work?
The senator knows of what he speaks.
Do you further yield?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, do you think that we should have hardworking Americans go to work every day to provide a living for those who are unwilling to work?
No, I do not.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Senator, I want to make sure I understand what you said correctly. The U.S. Senate voted against it, and it got no votes for it.
Well, I mean, there were 3 Democrats that voted against it.
No, and everyone
They
else
voted
was
no.
present.
Everybody was present, but they didn't vote yes.
Which is not a yes.
It's
Am
not
I
a yes,
correct?
but it's not a yes. They abstained.
Okay,
Basically abstained.
So if I understand you correctly, the U.S. Senate voted on it, no one voted for it, and I don't believe it's been brought up by the House of Representatives, which
It
is
is
the
not, but
Democratic
the U.S.
control.
Senate did bring it up, And again, 3 Democrats voted against it, 1 independent, and all Republicans. So I think it was 56 that voted against the Green New Deal.
So I guess I don't really understand the purpose of your resolution, considering that the body in Democratic control hasn't actually taken it up, and everyone else voted present that are Democrats. I'm not sure
Senator,
why.
I'd ask that to be a question in the
Yes,
format of a
isn't it
question.
true that I don't quite understand the need for it, because by your own testimony,
Well,
it
the
wasn't
Democrats,
getting a lot of
the
traction.
what I was trying to say is the Democrats in the Senate did not vote yes.
Did
they
not
voted
vote
present.
Yes, they did not vote yes. They did not vote yes.
They voted present.
Thank you.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, and I urge your support of Senate Resolution 341. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the minority leader to speak to the resolution.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this is an important issue, as the one we talked about a little bit ago was. This is about greenhouse gases, the future of this country and this world. This is about challenges we are facing on a global scale, one that will affect the lives of your children and your grandchildren for years to come. And we had this bill in the Senate rules, but we didn't pull out the actual resolution that's before Congress. We didn't debate it for hours and talk about should this come to the floor. We spent less than a minute talking about whether this is good or bad. We didn't try to go into some of the statements, Senator, from the 21st just stated, which were not accurate. We didn't get to where we should be for a bill that's before you to vote on. And it's a bill that children and grandchildren in your district will have to live on and live with if we pass this bill and it's recognized by Congress and we continue to take no action on greenhouse gases and their effect. Now, man-made, not man-made, I think the science is in. And we need to realize that we, as a society, must try to preserve the natural resources and preserve the environment in a safe condition for future generations. The actual resolution in Congress asked for greenhouse gas emissions from human sources to be reduced from 40 to 60% of 2010 levels by 2030. It talks about making sure that we go to more energy efficient cars, but it doesn't foreclude airplanes. It doesn't have a blind spot to the future, trying to deal with technology in a way that serves our constituents. And while this resolution states it will cost thousands of jobs, in the resolution itself, the one that Congress is considering, it says it has to create thousands of jobs, that it has to be a job creator, not something that will cost jobs. And I do not think that on the last day of the session, we should be taking up something like this that has not been vetted in the committee, that has really implications beyond our generation. While many of us may not like everything in the new Green Deal, or may have things that we differ on, or we realize, as those people who propose it, that these are lofty goals. And America is a place where lofty goals should be strove for. And America should be a leader. Right now, we are about producing 20% of the greenhouse gases in the world, although our population is far short of that. America should be a world leader in fighting greenhouse gases, in addressing these concerns, and I promise each and every one of you, the young people in our country, they get it. And I hope that you will study this issue more, vote against this resolution today, and let's come back next year and talk about this in committee where we have time to truly debate what's being urged in the federal resolution, what's realistic and what's not, and not get down here and demagogue for the public. I'll yield if there's questions, or I'll yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th for a question.
Would the minority leader yield, please?
I yield.
Is it not true that the Green New Deal is supported by one of the most radical members of Congress now, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Is that not true?
Senator, you are allowed to have your position on various members of Congress. Personally, I think that we need Congress members of Congress who are going to bring in a diversion of views, and certainly one that aggressively fights for protecting our environment is one we should listen to, whether you agree with all her views or not, that you should listen to her, and you should listen to other members of Congress that say that we should address global climate changes in a proactive way and not wait too late for our children.
You have no more questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? The chair hears none. The previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? The questions on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 33, the nays are 19. The resolutions having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore adopted. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Resolution 365?
Senate Resolution 365 by Senator Ligon III and others, a resolution commending President Donald J. Trump for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. The people of my district asked me to bring this resolution, and I'm very proud to be able to do so. Just to commend President Trump for all of his accomplishments as president and in keeping the promises which he has made to the American people. For example, he promised to end the disastrous Iran nuclear deal. He's done so. He promised to smash the ISIS caliphate. He's done so. He promised to renegotiate NAFTA. He's done so. He's moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, something that other presidents didn't have courage to do. His support for our oil industry has allowed us to increase our oil production. We've now surpassed Saudi Arabia. He's rolled back suffocating regulations, which is helping to spur our economic growth and that we're experiencing now in our country. We've passed tax cuts which have benefited millions of people and families across our country. He's advanced religious liberty in accordance with his promise. He's taken pro-life positions as he has promised. He's nominated strong constitutional justices. With all these accomplishments, perhaps his greatest accomplishment is getting a stagnant economy going, which has provided opportunity for millions of people. We've seen our domestic product average at 2.9% in 2018. Family income has risen by 4%, and unemployment is down to 3.8%. His programs are creating opportunities for millions of people. For example, for minorities, the unemployment rate for African American teenagers fell to 19.3%. It was at 48.9% during the previous administration. And some recent polls by the Wall Street Journal indicate that his support among our minorities who are experiencing this growth and these benefits continues to grow. And so, Mr. President, I think we're experiencing some tremendous benefits from these policies. We're enjoying a fine economic recovery, which is giving all people in this country a tremendous amount of opportunity. So I just encourage everyone to vote for this resolution. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 21st to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just rise to speak in favor of Senate Resolution 365. President Trump has cut taxes, he's cut regulations, but more importantly, if you all remember, we had a bridge that collapsed a couple years ago, and he sprang into action, got rid of all the federal bureaucracy, and we got that bridge reopened in 6 weeks. He knows how to build infrastructure, and I think that's going to be the legacy. I think he's going to be the Eisenhower of our time on infrastructure, and I just want to come and support your resolution. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the minority leader to speak to the resolution.
Mr. President, I know time is late. We're not going to spend too much time on this. I would say there are a lot of things I could talk about: the rise of the national deficit, certain environmental policies, but the resolution itself, because we all wish the president can succeed for the next couple of years, we all want great things for our country, and we don't want to be naysayers, but when we see a resolution that talks about the president's bold and innovative communication style, when we have constituents calling and saying that they don't think it's a good example, some of these tweets, some of these statements, some inaccuracies that the president has been known to say, somebody has to get up and say why I'm voting against it and why some other people may vote against it. When we see, that this president, understands the values and will of the people of Glynn County, and you have friends who have called you from Glynn County and asked you to speak against this because they don't feel it's accurate, somebody's got to get up and say, whatever hope we have for this country and how strong we can be together, this resolution does not necessarily represent the feelings of all the members in this chamber, and I will be voting no, and I'm available for questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 40th for a question.
Will the senator yield?
I yield.
Isn't it true that my mama, who's a lifelong Republican, will be proud of me for my vote against this bill?
Although I fear your next primary opponent will have your mama's a lifelong Republican in the brochure, I do appreciate your statement, Senator.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I yield.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I'm here to change some minds. I would like to say on two counts, first of all, it is unfortunate that this is the way we're choosing to spend our 40th day here under the Gold Dome. And I think that introducing divisive resolutions like this and debating on the floor is perhaps not in the best interest of our constituents or what we were sent here to do. I will, however, since it is before us, has been placed in the wisdom of the leadership of this Senate, this is before us now on the Senate floor. And I would say, and I believe I speak for a multitude, I would say millions, the despicable attitudes towards women that have been displayed by this president on tape, on video, we've all seen it. It went viral across the nation and the world. Is that the kind of representation that we're looking for from our national leadership, to talk about women in the manner in which this man has done? And all of the things that have been uncovered about paying people off to hide the stories of his marital situation and his lack of faithfulness to his chosen one, his betrothed, the mother of his son. Is that the kind of leadership we want to lift up and honor? I think actually, no matter what party you're in, a lot of people sitting in this chamber would just as soon not be voting on this matter before us and on the language in this resolution. I will further say that the rise in hate crimes in this country, that man came down the escalator saying that Mexicans are rapists and murderers and all, probably a few good ones get through too, but denouncing entire nations, calling nations by names that we wouldn't even dare repeat here on the floor of this esteemed Senate. Those are behaviors that are mortifying. It embarrasses the nation. Experienced international representation and diplomats that have worked for the United States for their entire careers hang their heads in shame at the way that this man conducts himself in international situations. And the hatred of Muslims that has been stirred up, the hatred of immigrants, all of these are not good for our nation. And you in your heart of hearts, you know that. We shouldn't have this on the floor before us today, and I will certainly be voting no.
The senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? Chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? The question's on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 31, the nays are 19. The resolutions having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore adopted. You have a supplemental consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any of the bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee on state and local government operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bill that remain on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The question is on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. For what purpose does the senator from the 17th rise?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to be excused from voting on House Bill 665 pursuant to Senate Rule 5-1.8D.
Senator from the 17th is asked to be excused from Senate Bill 665. Is there objection? No objection. You are excused. Where did I leave off here? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. So am I going to this House Resolution 51 right here? Yes, sir. Okay. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. The bills on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th for a motion.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that H.R. 51 be taken from the table.
Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Resolution 51 by Representatives Morris, the 26th, and others, a resolution creating the joint Georgia-North Carolina and Georgia-Tennessee Boundary Line Commission for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th to speak to Hold on 1 second. Senator from the 27th has asked for unanimous consent that House Resolution 51 be taken from the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Chair now recognizes the senator from the 27th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. H.R. 51 forms the Georgia-North Carolina and Georgia-Tennessee Boundary Commission. The first part of this resolution laboriously lays out the history of the border dispute. For those of you that haven't seen it, I thought it might be helpful to show you a photo of the Georgia-Tennessee border, which I think is going to come up on the screen behind us here. That's the border. It's the marking. As you can see, it's dry. The border is supposed to be the 35th parallel, and as you'll see on the next image, the 35th parallel is in the middle of the Tennessee River. So the 35th parallel is mismarked. This resolution would authorize the formation of a commission, 6 members, 3 members designated by the President of the Senate, 3 members designated by the by the Speaker of the House, to discuss this with our neighbors and hopefully get it resolved and clear up this long-standing discrepancy. Mr. President, if there's no further questions, I yield the well.
You have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I do.
You realize this is about the 4th time we've done this since I've been in this body in the last 12 years? And no reaction from the state of Tennessee whatsoever?
That's correct. This is part of, I'm sure, as you know, a long-going dispute over a number of issues regarding water and the border issue as well.
Have you considered the possibility of us just directing our Attorney General to go ahead and file suit in the U.S. Supreme Court, which is established to resolve disputes between states on boundaries?
I would certainly be open to that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from Northwest Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I do.
Senator, isn't it true that Georgia has, in recent years, never approached Tennessee with this border issue?
I'm not sure how you would define recent years, but as you see laid out here, there has been numerous communication back and forth over the perhaps not so recent years.
Well, that'd be correct, because isn't it true that I met with the governor of Tennessee about 6 years ago to discuss this with him, and he did, in fact, tell me that nobody has reached out to Tennessee?
I'm sure the fine chairman knows of what he speaks.
Thank you. Isn't it true also that when one has a disturbance with a neighbor, it is always best to walk to the fence line and have a discussion before you call the law?
I believe that is true.
So
that's the
why
intention.
That's
the intention of this bill.
And isn't it true, my vote will be no, because I think we should resolve it in a peaceful manner instead of, I know my lawyer friends have to eat too, but instead of sicking a bunch of lawyers on our neighbors north of us.
Well, this bill would be the peaceful solution as opposed to calling the lawyers, but I certainly understand what you're saying.
Does the senator continue to yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Senator yield?
I do.
Isn't it true that we have to file these resolutions periodically, or we would be deemed to have waived our rights?
That is true, very similar to a private property dispute. That is correct.
You have no more questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? Chair hears none, and the previous questions ordered. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? The questions on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 47, the nays are 2. The resolution having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore adopted. Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd for a motion.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent to remove House Bill 70 from the table.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption?
House Bill 70 by Representatives of Illustration, the 104th and others. Bill will be titled on Enactment Title 29 of the OCGA relating to Guardian Award, so as to revise provisions relating to guardians and conservators of minors and adults, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following substitute to House Bill 70. Bill will be titled Enactment Title 29 of the OCGA relating to Guardian Awards, so as to revise provisions relating to guardians and conservators of minors and adults, revise provisions relating to parental consent to temporary guardianship for other purposes. Amendment 1 by Senator Stone of the 23rd offers the following amendment. Amend the Senate Committee on Judiciary substitute to House Bill 70 by replacing line 13 with the following. Annotated so as to make conforming revisions to provide for related matters, provide for an effective date, and for other purposes. Amendment 2 by Senator Stone of the 23rd offers the following amendment. Amend the Senate Committee on Judiciary substitute to House Bill 70 by adding the court between section and shall in line 349 and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Senator from the 23rd has asked for unanimous consent that House Bill 70 be taken from the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and House Bill 70 is taken from the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd to speak to House Bill 70 and both amendments, Amendments 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 70 ties up loose ends related to the Uniform Adult Guardianship and Conservatorship Proceedings Act, or the UAGCPJA of 2016. It ensures procedural consistency and clarity, especially in the areas dealing with payment of bond premiums from the ward's estate, access to digital assets, registration and enforcement of orders from other states concerning determination of incapacity and appointment, and allocation of fees and costs, and the factors for a court to consider with respect to awarding reasonable fees for professionals, that's physicians, psychologists, and clinical social workers, in evaluating the cognitive abilities and mental conditions of the ward, and with respect to assessing an unsuccessful petitioner with those costs. There are two amendments. One simply extends the effective date of the bill to allow practitioners time to adjust to the changes. And secondly, the second amendment just changes some grammatical wording. Both these bills come to us from the State Bar, more particularly the fiduciary section of the State Bar. They're very technical, but they deal with how guardianships and conservatorships work. I'd be happy to try to answer questions.
You have no questions.
I urge support for House Bill 70.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill or the amendments? The chair hears none. We'll take up amendment number 1. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none, and floor amendment number 1 is adopted. We'll now take up floor amendment number 2. The question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 2. Is there objection to the adoption of the amendment? The chair hears none, and floor amendment number 2 is adopted. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted as amended. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate disagree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 200.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 200 by Senator Gooch of the 51st and others. A bill will be titled Enactment Article 4 of Chapter 2 of Title 32 of the OCGA, relating to exercise of power to contract by the Georgia Department of Transportation, so as to require the department to develop procedure for appealing the rejection of contract bidding for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Does the senator from the 51st wish to speak to his motion? Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. People, they've done it again. Senator from the 7th, the House has done it again. I sent a simple bill over there. It was a one-line bill that required the DOT to adopt some appeal language for low bid procurement, and they turned around and amended the bill to about 35 or 40 pages. It has language on there about exactly. Can you believe it? Now it's got airport language on there. It has fuel exemption language on there. And believe it or not, there's a transit bill on the thing. So I need the Senate to stand strong tonight. We're going to say no to their amendment, their sub to SB 200. I hope you'll stand with me. Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
The senator from the 51st has emotionally moved that the Senate disagree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 200. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the Senate has disagreed. All right, the chairs, the Senate, not just the chair, but all of us. So we're going to stand at ease. We're going to stand at ease for an hour. We'll be back here at 5 o'clock. Don't go far. Senate stands in recess.